I'm sewing a grey wool midi skirt this week. Why? They've been dominating winter runways, but the good ones are so expensive, and I never understand why beautiful wool is often lined with synthetics. So, I'm making mine from scratch, and I'm sharing a few tips as I go. Hi! Today is still first week of January, a perfectly beautiful gray day outside, and yes, I like gray. Gray is beautiful. I think gray is sort of like stayed in between. And so I thought, what could be a better day to start a new project with making a perfect gray wool midi skirt. So I'm gonna start laying this out. I didn't do it on camera, but I prepped the fabric. I steam pressed it perfectly to make sure that maybe I could prevent some shrinkage. It is 100% wool flannel, not the one that you make shirts out of. That's kind of woolen flannel. This is worsted flannel. I think I'm using the terms correctly. So it had this really nice, soft, kind of fuzzy touch, but it's high quality and it doesn't have any stretch. It's very lightweight. It drapes very well. So I knew I would use it for many things. It's perfect for skirts, pants, jackets. I made a jacket out of it. I gave it to my friend one time. So this is the pattern, 2925. Again, I don't know what year this was published. I'm pretty sure you can find it if you like that. The skirt is fabulous. Let me see. This is a good, like a better drawing that could show you the detail. It's long. According to the pattern, the length of this skirt is 29.5 inches, and it should hit you at sort of below the mid-calf length. And this is the proper midi skirt length, from what I know about that. And on me, this is going to be too short. So it means that I will have to alter the pattern. And the pattern gives you an opportunity to do that. Obviously, you can alter any pattern as you wish. And this should be a simple alteration. They even show you obviously the where to shorten and to lengthen, right? And I could cut this here, but in my case, to reach the level of below mid-calf, I would need to add about 4 inches, which in this case, if I cut it here and add 4 inches, which is quite a bit of a length, right? This would extend and make sort of like a tube out of the piece, because this piece lays flat on your stomach and across your hips, and it's supposed to be hugging you, right, kind of nicely, kind of I don't know, let me go back to the picture, hugging you quite nicely. But if I extended it, this will be below where my widest part, and it's supposed to flare out already at this part, so extending it by this much in this one area is not going to be practical. So I think that to perfectly make the alteration and make it fit me better, I need to cut it here, and maybe I'll extend an inch, and then I will cut it in 2 more places, or maybe I could get away with a couple inches at the most here, and then cut it in another place a bit lower, maybe another 10 inches or so, maybe a little bit higher, let's say like 7 inches below that point, like right here where it does really flare out. I can make another cut and add another 2 inches. I could add a little bit to the hem, but I don't want to do that because the skirt at the hem really is already wide and very flared. I want to tell a personal story again as I'm laying this out and making sure I'm maximizing the use of the fabric. Yeah, can't do it, can't do it. It's quite wide. That's what creates these beautiful lines, and that the skirt opens up. So it's using the entire width of my folded fabric, and I need these 2 of those, right? Side C. Cut 4. Oof, oh my, that's right. So it needs more of this. Okay, never mind. No problem at all. So we've got enough. So this cuts on the fold. So anyway, when I was 18 or 19, 18 I think, I was just out of school, and I then got enrolled into my linguistic university. And those of you who are listening, have been listening for a while, you know this is not my native language, and I still struggle sometimes, but I learned it when I was very young in school at first, and then I was preparing myself for a career of English language interpreter or teacher, something like that, something along the lines of just utilizing the language skills. And I lived in Moscow, Russia at the time. And then perestroika happened, and so things kind of changed. We had more different opportunities, and I got into the hospitality industry because of my language. I was admitted to as a switchboard operator at a hotel that was built by a Canadian company. It was the first kind of Western-style hotel back in the day. What I really wanted was to be on the front desk because it seemed so nice, because they had a uniform and they interacted with the guests, but I was so shy. And so as a kid, so when I interviewed, I was completely like all nervous and red, and probably couldn't really present myself as someone who could be in front of the guests, yet I would answer in pretty much almost perfect English language. And so they said, you know, she's got a skill, so she should be perfect behind the screen and the switchboard. And so I became the voice of that hotel, and I worked night shifts and day shifts and early morning, but it allowed me also to have a full-time job, have a good salary, learn a lot about the world and myself, but also let me get my pins, also just kind of develop some skills, right? Anyway, I needed to get dressed to get to work, and I needed clothes, and so we were poor, we didn't have much. It was perestroika, nothing was accessible, available, and so my mom made me that skirt. It was a long midi length skirt that had a triangular long yoke and some light gathers all around that were inserted into the yoke. It didn't fit me quite right, because I think what happened is my mom sewed very well, but she cut the yoke maybe a little bit too long, and so it didn't quite lay flat on my tummy. Didn't matter, right? I love that skirt tremendously, not only because she made it and I loved it, but it was the only thing I had. And I actually also knitted myself 2 sweaters, one for winter, one for summer. I had a yellow sweater that was like canary yellow, that had cable knits and something like Ralph Lauren would sell these days, and I made it myself. They never go out of style and out of fashion, so I wore it a lot in the like late summer and early fall. And then in the winter time I had a wool sweater that I made, which was, actually I'm going to be cutting this, I shouldn't be pinning this, I'm going to be extending the skirt. And so then I made another sweater for the winter time, which was a wool, and this is something that my mom started for herself, but I asked her if I could have it so that I could finish it myself, and she said yes, you could have it if you just you know, do it yourself. I said okay, no problem. So I knew how to knit, my grandmother taught me, and so I knitted myself this sweater. It had chevron style kind of stripes in bright colors. It was navy, fuchsia and blue, I think. That's all I had. And so I thought that, you know, I hadn't made or bought a skirt, a midi gray wool skirt, since that time. So I thought this would be a perfect opportunity to do that. If I could meet myself at 19, I would make time for that scared, tall, skinny, shy girl, not quite a woman yet, in that gray space between adolescence and womanhood. I would let her ask me anything, and I would sit and listen as long as she needed, so she felt safe and loved. I would tell her that her life is ahead of her, full of possibilities. I would tell her to keep dancing and dressing up in front of the mirror after school, because one day she will do the same in front of a camera and it will feel just as magical. I would also tell her that at 22 she will find her father, who had been absent all her life, only to lose him again a year later. She should not blame herself, because nobody can save someone who doesn't want to be saved. I would tell her she will find love and happiness, although the first man she marries won't be the love of her life. That love will come decades later, in her late 40s, when she least expects it. I would tell her she will have a career, live in a foreign country, speak multiple languages, and learn to sew. She will learn to live with sadness and turn it into stories that help others heal. Sometimes, seeing a young couple with children will bring a pang to her chest, and tears will well up in her gray eyes. She will not have children of her own, but she will build a home and a family with a wonderful husband and a stepson. And all the heartache she will encounter will teach her what love is. At 50, she will turn her life upside down once again, leaving her job and her career for her creative side. And life will come full circle. Truly herself, she will find meaning in her work again. And most importantly, I would tell her, she doesn't have to be afraid, because I, her future self, am here, and I have her back. Let's talk about why the skirt has this little teaching moment for us. Firstly, as you know, it has curved seams, right? It has inserts like these big pieces here. We have 4 of these, and we have 2 on the front and 2 in the back, and they have curved seams. So usually the seam that extends outwards, right, it's a little bit longer and it stretches a bit more. So the challenge comes when you need to combine the two and make sure they meet perfectly for the beautiful silhouette and nothing is distorted. So what you do in this case, that you need to help that larger seam to fit the smaller seam a little bit. So what you do, you reinforce with a stitch, just stay stitched that seam here, the seam that curves inwards, because you will be clipping into it. And see, here I'm showing it to you how I'm doing this on the flat surface, right? And so before you actually meet the curved seams, right, you need to make sure that you know where the curved seam begins and where it ends. And this is where the notches are extremely helpful. I usually mark my notches with a thread. So on both pieces that you will be meeting, there will be a point that you will need to match. And this is how you start pinning, right? So you will match those notches carefully. Then you will match the very top of your garments, right, of your pieces, and the very bottom. If there are other notches along the seam, right, at any point, whether it's on the skirt or where the perhaps the waistline is marked, so you match these. And you don't just pin from top to the bottom or vice versa. You would pin in multiple places along the way to make sure everything really is matching perfectly, because sometimes, you know, pieces that are cut, they would stretch, some more than others, and then if you are not paying attention while you're pinning a pretty long seam, then you might get out of balance and distort things. But once you match all the notches and the top and the bottom of the pieces, then you work on that curved seam. It's very important that you don't like stretch or force anything, right? You need to work with the fabric, and usually fabric will sort of release itself. It's magical, really, to see how it releases itself, and the seams match if you just like coax them gently into it. So here I wanted to show you something else before we proceed. So these are 2 of my back pieces, and I will be inserting a zipper into it. Before I attach the side pieces, the curved seams that we talked about, see, I already have the stitching done for the curved seam that I will be clipping into, but I don't want to add those pieces yet. I want to proceed with constructing my zipper first. And I think that's important. Also, I would highly recommend to never mess much with the center seam in the back, especially if you have the zipper there, so that it lay flatter on your tuche and looked better, because this is a straight seam, and that is the seam you don't really want to alter much. On dresses you might, especially in the back, like an upper above the waistline, that's okay to do, but generally speaking, the less you mess with the seam, the better it will look in the back, especially with the zipper, because the zipper will be adding some bulk. Okay, so before I sew the zipper, I like to add a little bit of interfacing, but I highly recommend always test your fabric. Get a little piece of fabric like this, and interface it with the interfacing that you want to use, and make sure you like it, because you don't want to just glue it on and only to realize that it is too bulky or something doesn't quite work. So I'm choosing this interfacing. I don't like gluing things on, but in small places like this, I think that's critical to do. So I would neaten the seam before I sew it up together. It's a lot easier to do when the pieces are separated, right? I'll add my interfacing, and then I will create that seam to add my zipper. And again, I will do it in that order, and then I will add my side pieces, because the less bulk you have in the piece, the better. Hi. You know how I like to show up and talk to you? I feel real time. It's not real time, but it feels like it suddenly. I feel like you're in the room and I'm having a conversation with some very good women friends. So I wanted to tell you a real quick story before I show you some of the skirts that I made throughout the years, or I purchased, and I've owned and loved them and wore them for decades, actually, in some cases. But this past summer in June, I had the absolute luxury of visiting one of my favorite cities in the whole world, and that's London. And I had a couple days to just roam around, and whenever I have an opportunity, I go and visit one of the places that I love there in London. It is a district, it's a neighborhood called Marylebone Village. Very posh, very beautiful. So just walking around and popping into some little boutiques and chatting with the people who work there, having coffee or a little lunch, things like that. You know, I don't buy a lot of clothing these days, or I don't really like have the luxury of investing in anything like super expensive. But anyway, it's an absolute pleasure to go there and walk around, and it was June. It was absolutely gorgeous. And so one of my favorite places in Marylebone Village is a bookstore. It's called Don't Books. If you never been, you absolutely look them up. Don't Books. I'll list the link below, and you will be able to find it if you're in London. And so as I was browsing the bookshelves, one of the books spoke to me, and I'm going to show it to you. This is the book by Alexandra Schulman, and it is called Clothes and Other Things That Matter. So Alexandra Schulman is a former editor, now many years retired, editor of British Vogue. But in my opinion, with rather unique perspective on what clothes are and what fashion industry is about, and the style and things like that. So she is an incredible resource, all things fashionable, but also a very profound and independent opinions about certain things, so that I respect a lot. And a lot of this, what I read in the book, resonates with me. So she tells stories of some of the clothes, but she starts the book by listing all of her possessions in terms of clothing, all of her garments, accessories. There's a long list of every item. There are over 500 or 600 of them. I'm not going to give it away. If you get a chance to read this, you'll enjoy this little read. But I think that exercise, actually not a bad one, because if we haven't done that before, I did it once, and it will be fun for some but stressful for others. It really depends on your relationship with the clothes and all the things that you own in your life, because I think they are fun and memorable and enjoyable if you have an emotional and intellectual connection to them, and if you remember when you selected and what the occasion was, or if they carry stories and meaning and certain sentimental value. But if they're just things that you purchase without much thought, then you will be overwhelmed. But I think I would encourage you, for fun or for just a moment of personal reflection, take it all out, just like grab everything, put it like in the middle of your bedroom or on your bed, and take in the sheer volume of the things that you own and just count them, every item of every category if you can, and write them down. And what does it make you think about? Like, how do you feel in the moment? So, and then let me know. I'd love to tell you. I'm not going to share what I thought of some of them and how it made me feel a certain way, but I think it would be nice to compare notes if you ever cared to comment. And I do love comments. I cannot thank you enough. I am a completely new, not even creator, but just someone who shares stories on YouTube. And when you respond and you comment on something that resonates, that just warms my heart, because this is why I'm doing this, for these connections. And I feel like I'm acquiring an incredible circle of men and women who resonate with what I am sharing, and it just it lights me up like nothing else. So please do share and comment, and it does help the channel, because the more you comment, the more YouTube algorithms send me to other people with similar interests. Anyway, but I want to show you some skirts. Let me dress up, let me play some music, and I'll share some of the details with you, all right? I bought this one over 10 years ago. At first glance it's a simple straight skirt, but then comes the quirky twist, a row of oversized hooks sewn onto grosgrain ribbon right above the slit. I usually wear it straight, but you can open them and wear it asymmetrically. This is by Karl Lagerfeld, not Couture, obviously, but from a good store, and I absolutely love it. Next is another skirt that is at least 10 years old, and I made this one myself using a Burda pattern from the time. The original design had a godet inserted in the back, but I didn't love the look of it when it was finished, so I pleated it instead, and I made it intentional. I love the skirt. It has a yoke, and I've loved the skirts with yokes since I was 19, as you know by now. This one is the warmest skirt I own, which I also made. It's simple knee length, but I added raw fringed edge by removing threads and carefully securing it by hand so it won't fray. Festive, cozy, and I love pairing it with a warm, cozy cashmere sweater. This next one is part of a set I made myself a few years ago. I needed something formal for work but elegant enough for evening, so I used a light wool jacquard with beautiful floral pattern. Jacquards are my favorite fabrics. It's lined in silk charmeuse, and honestly the lining probably cost more than the set itself. I even made the fabric-covered buttons. This blue skirt I love, but I haven't worn it yet. I think I made it a bit too big, though it could be worn on the hips. And once again it has a yoke, and all of the pieces are cut on the bias. The feel is amazing. I just need to think through the styling, or maybe take it in a notch. Well, let me know what you think. Now, this one was an experiment actually. This fun skirt is essentially a rectangle with 14 wide godets, and you know by now how much I love those inserted into it. I used a very inexpensive cotton as a test, and I loved it so much that I ended up wearing it. I'm going to do a tutorial so you can make it too. You don't need a pattern, and godets only sound fancy. They are actually not hard at all. And last, this is one of my oldest pieces, and it's a designer from Maison Margiela. It was a bit of a splurge at the time, but I've had it for years, and by now the cost per wear is probably close to zero. I love wearing it with loafers. I love the colors, the pleats, and by the way, it's cut on the bias as well. That's it. I wanted to line my skirt, and I realized I didn't have the proper lining, and I used to buy the proper lining fabric, something that my teacher recommended years ago, and it's kind of like it's synthetic, right, but it could be viscose, so kind of semi-synthetic, hang loose it's called, and I haven't used it in a while, and so it's a pretty large piece, so I thought I'll go and buy one to line my skirt. And I went to the store, and I couldn't bring myself to buying a synthetic polyester fabric. I completely refuse to add to the pile of the of the big mess of polyester that we already as humans created, and it will rot there in the landfills centuries after we're gone. So I'm not going to do that. So I also didn't want to splurge on more silk because I have a lot in my stash, and I sort of left my job recently to dedicate myself to the creative aspect of my life. And so I'm trying to be kind of more careful in how I use things. Plus, I've been accumulating fabrics for 25 or 30 years, and there's like boxes and boxes that someday I'll show you. So I'm going to use what I have. And so I found this super amazing kind of like stardust fabric that has gray and black and a little bit of purple in it, and it's like super, super interesting looking. It's perfect for, in terms of the weight, for this, right, sort of unusual. It's silk crepe, lightweight. It's soft, so the wool flannel that I have for the skirt will glide real nicely over it. So I came back home and I looked through the stash and found this fabric, and so this is what I'm cutting off. I just wanted to share one little tip here with you before I cut into it. I know it's very challenging to work with silk fabrics, and so what I normally do and I learned to do is like I try not to throw away tissue paper when there's presents or you order something. There's always tissue paper, so I like carefully spread it and fold it and stash it away, because then I reuse it for multiple things. And one of those things is I would just pin my silk sleek and slinky fabrics onto it, because that way it is a whole lot easier to cut. And so this is what I've done here. You can use newspapers if you're still subscribing. You know, my husband reads actual newspapers, and so you can do those, but be very careful. You can only do it on like dark fabrics, because it will transfer, the dyes in the print will transfer it into the fabric, plus they're chemicals, so you might not want to handle those. Anyway, I'm going to start cutting this out. I probably don't have enough, but for the most part, for the front and the back and then the sides, I'm probably going to be piecing together and creating a miracle of engineering, of piecing together all these cut-offs to use the maximum of that fabric. So I should be good. So it will take some time. I'm not going to put you through this. But as I'm cutting this, I wanted to talk to you about something. I was just thinking, I kept mulling over, why is it that these days the designers really are elevating a simple skirt like this, right? A simple gray wool or any other material, straight or slightly flared skirt, and make it a fashion statement, make it an item of luxury. And it's on the runways, and they are gorgeous. A lot of them cost anywhere between $500 to $4,000, depending on the name of the designer. And why would they do that these days? And I thought two things. First, I thought that we live in the world where right now we are so inundated and bombarded with a lot of social media, a lot of sales, a lot of news, most of which are not pleasant and hard. And we are living in a constant state of very serious overwhelm. And I think we're craving the simplicity, and I think the designers here and the people who are paying attention, their marketing teams, they realize that, you know, this is what people see. There's bits of paper, newspaper as well. And people are sick and tired. We're craving simplicity. We're craving calm. So gray and simple silhouettes are what we want these days. And so it's smart, but do we really need to be elevating it to that extent? I think like charging $3,000 for a designer skirt made out of pretty much similar fabric that I'm using, right? And calling it a luxury, appealing to the aesthetics and the wallets of the people who can afford that, while in reality, in real life, right, this kind of garment has always been just a plain staple, you know. These garments are more practical, and we used to choose them, and still do in many communities in our lives, because they are practical, because they will last for a very long time, because they are dignified and they are simple and elegant, and on the runways they are styled to be powerful, to create that image of power. But in real life, that power comes from the repetition, from the fact that we can wear it in so many different ways, that it lasts, that it provides comfort, that it just covers our bodies. And so we sort of humans forget about what clothes really are about and should do. And I think it's really important to remind ourselves about that. I want my back scratched every night. Quiche Lorraine for breakfast. I want my health. A summer gale. Nostalgia clouding my vision. I want to lie on a velvet chaise with 3 fat cats. A shower after swimming. I want success. A working car. Several trench coats I can choose from. I want to storm down 7th Avenue in high-heeled boots. Find a jazz club in the village. I want a drink, a marble floor to rearrange my bedroom. I want surprise. I want a choice. I want the birds to know me. The value of something only exists by collective agreement. The value of something only exists by a collective agreement. So we create that monster ourselves. You know, who says that that value is in that luxury Chanel bag or in that skirt by a designer brand that should cost you $4,000? Is it that desirable? But what really is behind it, and what is value to you? To me, I think looking into the future of this 2026, right? My health is of value to me. That is a luxury. I think my time with the people that I love and the time that I can devote to my craft and things that I love, that is a luxury to me. You know, being able to live freely and feel safe, that is a luxury to me. Clothes are meant to enhance it in some way, but like should not, in my very humble opinion, should not be the ultimate goal.